Adanna's fingers shook as she pointed at the old photograph on the wall. The small living room was quiet. Too quiet. A standing fan hummed weakly in the corner, pushing warm Lagos air around. The brown curtains by the window were thin and faded. A pot of stew still boiled softly in the tiny kitchen. But Adana did not smell the stew. She did not feel the heat. Her eyes were fixed on one thing: the picture. There, on the cracked cream wall of her maid's house, was the smiling face of her husband, James. Not on a phone. Not inside a magazine. But framed. Protected behind glass. Like something special. Like something loved. Adana's heart pounded so loudly she could hear it in her ears. "That is my husband," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. Why is my husband's picture in your house?" Her voice broke on the last word. Ella froze near the doorway, holding a plastic bowl in her hands. The 4-year-old maid, who always moved quickly and spoke softly in the mansion, now looked like a child caught in a storm. Her eyes went wide. Her lips parted. Her fingers tightened around the bowl until it almost slipped. "Madam, I can explain," Ella stammered, her voice thin. Adana slowly turned to face her, anger and hurt mixing on her face. "Explain what, Ella?" she asked, trying to keep her voice calm, but it shook anyway. "Why is my husband hanging on your wall like a family member?" The picture did not lie. James was there. Younger, maybe, but it was him. His familiar eyes. His strong jaw. That same playful smile he gave her when he teased her at breakfast. But what was he doing in this small room, inside this tiny house in a crowded part of Lagos, far away from their rich, gated estate? Adana took one step closer to the picture, her heels tapping on the tiled floor. A new fear began to grow in her chest. Something cold, something heavy. "Who are you to him, Ella?" she whispered. Ella opened her mouth. But before she could speak, we go back to where it all began. That morning had started like every other perfect busy day in Adana's world. Sunlight poured into the large glass windows of the Anderson Heights mansion in Ikoyi. The marble floors shone. The smell of fresh bread and coffee filled the air. Workers moved around quietly, doing their jobs. Adana sat at the long dining table, her tablet in front of her, reading the latest reports from her companies. She was a billionaire, but today she was dressed simply. White silk blouse, fitted black trousers, and a gold watch that cost more than some houses. She did not show off her wealth. She carried it lightly, like it was just a part of her, not all of her. Across from her sat James, her husband of 10 years, same age as her, 38, handsome, calm, wearing a navy blue shirt and a silver wristwatch. He scrolled through something on his phone and smiled. "You are already working this early," he teased. "Madam Billionaire, will you not rest small?" Adana smirked. "If I rest, who will sign your allowance?" He laughed, deep and warm, and the sound filled the room like music. They looked perfect together. The powerful couple. The dream life. But even perfect mornings can hide secrets. "Madam, good morning," a soft voice said from behind. It was Ella. She walked in quietly with a tray of fresh orange juice. Her t-shirt and black skirt were neat. Her hair was packed back in a simple puff. She kept her eyes low, as she always did. "Good morning, Ella," Adana said without looking up from her tablet. "Good morning, Ma," Ella replied. "Good morning, sir." James nodded. "Morning." As Ella poured juice into Adana's glass, her hand shook just a little. A drop slipped onto the table. "Sorry, Ma," Ella whispered quickly, wiping it fast. Adana barely noticed. Small mistakes did not bother her, as long as Ella was respectful and hard-working. She had hired Ella 6 months ago from a small agency. The girl had looked scared and thin that day, her eyes full of worry. But she worked hard. She was polite. She never argued. "Are you okay?" Adana asked, glancing up for a second. "Yes, Ma, I am fine," Ella said quickly, but her eyes flicked just for a moment towards James. It was so fast that most people would have missed it. But Adana did not miss anything. She was a woman who watched details. Still, she said nothing. She brushed it off. Maybe it was nothing. James finished his breakfast and stood up, adjusting his watch. "I have to leave early today," he said, kissing Adana lightly on the forehead. "Board meeting by 9. "I thought your meeting was by 10, she replied lightly. He paused. Just for half a second, then smiled. "They moved it earlier," he said. "You know how these people can be." She nodded, slowly. All right. Drive safe. He left, his cologne still hanging in the air. Ella cleared the plates in silence. For some reason, the house felt a little heavier that morning, like a cloud was forming over a blue sky. Around noon, Adanna's driver pulled the black Range Rover into a busy street in Surulere. Small shops lined the road. Children ran and played. Market women called out to customers. Adanna sat in the back seat, looking out the window. She had a simple motive. She was going to surprise Ella. Earlier that week, Ella had asked for 2 days off to settle something at home. Her voice had trembled as she spoke. Adanna had agreed and even given her some extra money for transport. But last night, Ella had come back with red eyes and a forced smile. Everything okay? Adanna had asked. Yes, Ma. Thank you, Ma, Ella had replied. Lies always left a strange mark on a person's face, and Adanna felt it. So, today, when she had a free afternoon, she told her driver, "Take me to the address Ella put in her file." Her house. Ma? He asked, surprised. Yes, I want to see how she is living. I also have some things for her family. On the seat beside her sat a bag of food items, rice, oil, noodles, and a small envelope with some money. Adanna liked to help the people who worked for her, but she also liked to see things with her own eyes. The car stopped in front of a small, old building with peeling paint. This is the place, Ma, the driver said. Adanna stepped out carefully, the sun hot on her skin. She adjusted her sunglasses and held the bag of items. Children played by the entrance, shouting and laughing. A woman carrying a bucket on her head greeted her with curious eyes. Good afternoon, Adanna said politely. Good afternoon, madam, the woman replied, staring at her clothes, her bag, her quiet power. Adanna climbed the short stairs and knocked on the wooden door with the number 7 written in fading paint. After a few seconds, the door opened. Ella stood there, wearing a plain gown and no makeup. Her eyes went wide. Ma, she breathed. You are here? Yes, Adanna said calmly. I was in the area. I thought I should visit. You did not tell me your house was this close. Ella's lips shook. Ma, the house is small. I did not think. It is okay, Adanna said, giving a small smile. Can I come in? Ella hesitated for a moment too long. Then she stepped aside. Yes, Ma, please come in. The room was small but neat. There was a brown sofa, a tiny TV on a plastic stand, and a table with a Bible and a candle. A small shelf held a few plates and cups. Adanna looked around, her heart softening. So this is where you stay, she said kindly. You did well to keep it clean. I brought some food items for you and your family. Tears sprang into Ella's eyes. Thank you, Ma. God will bless you, Ma. As Ella moved to clear a space for the bag, Adanna's eyes scanned the walls, the shelves, the little details that showed someone's life. Then she saw it. Her feet slowed, her breath caught. On the wall, next to a calendar and a faded picture of a little girl, was a framed photograph. She stepped closer. Her heart began to beat faster with each step. It was not possible, but it was. The man in the picture was James. Younger, maybe, wearing a simple shirt. Smiling in a way she knew very well. His arm was around someone just outside the frame, cut off by the picture's border. Adanna's hand flew to her mouth. Jesus, she whispered. This is James. Behind her, the plastic bowl in Ella's hands rattled. Ma, please, Ella said in a shaky voice. I can explain. It is not what you think. Adanna turned slowly, her eyes dark and searching. Who took this picture? She asked. How do you have my husband's picture hanging on your wall, Ella? Ella's eyes filled with tears. Her lips trembled as she opened her mouth. Madam, James is not just your husband, she whispered. Adanna's stomach dropped. What do you mean? She demanded, her voice sharper. Ella's next words came out in a broken whisper. He is the reason my mother died. The bowl slipped from Ella's hands and crashed to the floor. The plastic bowl hit the floor and shattered into pieces. For a moment, the whole room froze. The boiling stew in the kitchen kept bubbling. The children outside kept shouting and chasing each other. The fan kept spinning slowly, blowing warm air. But inside Ella's small room, time felt like it had stopped. Adanna stared at her maid. No, stared through her, trying to understand the words that had just been spoken. James. Her husband. The love of her life. The man who kissed her forehead just that morning. now being tied to the death of a woman he had never mentioned. Ella, Adana whispered, her voice almost breaking. What are you saying? What do you mean your mother died because of James? Ella squeezed her eyes shut. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Her hands trembled against her dress. I didn't want you to ever find out this way, she whispered. Not like this. Please sit down, Ma. I don't want to sit, Adana said sharply, but her legs felt weak beneath her. Ella pointed to the brown sofa. Please, Ma, if you fall, I don't know what to do. Adana's anger softened just a little. She lowered herself onto the sofa, but her eyes stayed fixed on Ella. Ella took a deep breath, walked to the small wooden chair by the table, and sat gently like sitting too fast might break her. Her voice shook as she spoke. James is the reason my mother died, she said again. But not because he killed her. It's not like that. Adana leaned forward. Her heart raced so fast she felt dizzy. Then what happened? She asked, her voice low. Ella wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. And then she began. Years ago, when I was just 8 years old, my mother worked as a cleaner in a hotel in Victoria Island, Ella said. We were very poor. My father left when I was little, so it was just me and my mum. She looked down at her hands. One day, she came home crying. I had never seen her cry that way. She told me she had lost her job. Why? Adana asked softly. Ella swallowed hard. She was accused of stealing an expensive wristwatch from one of the hotel's VIP guests. Adana's heartbeat skipped. A wristwatch. A false accusation. A VIP. Ella continued. She kept saying she didn't steal it. She begged them to check the cameras. She begged them to call the man so she could explain. Tears filled Ella's eyes again. But the man refused to listen. He said he didn't care. He said he didn't have time for nonsense. He told the hotel to fire her immediately. Adana felt something cold crawl up her spine. A man who didn't listen. A man who didn't care. A man who had power. Who was this man? She asked. Ella met her eyes. It was James, Ma. Adana's breath caught. No, she whispered. James would never. Ella shook her head quickly. Ma, please. I'm not saying he is a bad man. People change. Maybe he wasn't the same then. But what happened? It destroyed us. She took a deep breath and continued. My mum lost her job that day. She begged and cried, but nothing helped. We had no savings, no family, nothing. Her voice broke. We couldn't pay rent. We couldn't buy food. She fell sick, very sick, malaria. And there was no money for hospital. No money for medicine. Adana closed her eyes tightly, fighting her own tears. Ella, she whispered. Ella sniffed. She died in our one-room house, right there, holding my hand. She pointed to the small space where Adana now sat. It happened in a room just like this. For a moment, Adana could not speak. Her throat tightened. Her palms began to sweat. Her mind refused to accept the pieces falling together. But why do you have his picture? Adana asked, forcing the words out. Ella's face softened in a sad, painful way. Because the day my mother died, she told me something, Ella said. Something I never forgot. What? She said. Find the man who took everything from us. Don't hurt him, but let him see what he caused. One day, the truth must meet itself. Her voice wavered. And I promised her. That was the last promise I ever made. Adana blinked. So you kept his picture? For revenge? Ella shook her head fast. No, Ma, not revenge. I swear, not revenge. I only wanted to face him someday, to tell him what he did. To let him know his mistake destroyed a whole life. Adana stared at the picture again. James looked so young, so normal, so unaware. She felt her chest tighten with confusion. But why did you choose to work in my house? Adana asked suddenly. Why come into my home? Ella lowered her eyes. I didn't choose, she whispered. I didn't even know it was your house. The agency just sent me. When I arrived and saw James that first day, I almost fainted. Adana remembered that day clearly now. Ella had looked scared, nervous, jumping at every sound. Not because she was new, but because she recognized James. And you kept quiet, Adana said slowly. Yes, Ma, because he didn't remember me. And I didn't want to destroy your marriage. I didn't want trouble. I just wanted to work and survive. And the picture. Ella looked ashamed. I hid it behind other things so no one would see. But sometimes, I looked at it when I felt lost. It reminded me of where I came from, of my promise. A long silence filled the room. Adana did not move. Ella did not move. The air grew heavier. But Ella, Adana whispered, her voice trembling. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell James? Ella hesitated. Because, she said quietly, what I discovered later made everything worse. Adana's eyes widened. What did you discover? Ella took a shaky breath. James may not have just caused my mother's death, she said. He might also be the reason I grew up without a father. Adana's heart stopped. What are you talking about? She asked, her voice trembling. Ella looked up at her slowly. My mother told me something before she died, she whispered. She said, the man who destroyed our life was not just her boss. She held her breath. He was also the man she once loved. Adana felt her whole body go cold. James, she whispered, loved your mother? Ella nodded slowly. And Ma, she added softly. There is something even worse. Adana's voice cracked. What? Ella's lips shook as she spoke the words. My mother said, he might be my father. The room spun. For a full minute, Adana did not move. Her hands stayed frozen on her knees. Her breath came in sharp, uneven gasps. Her heartbeat felt like it was punching her chest from the inside. Ella's soft whisper echoed again in the tiny room. He might be my father. The words hit Adana so hard, she almost thought the walls had shifted. She lifted her eyes slowly, staring at the young woman sitting across from her. Ella, 24 years old, quiet, polite, always respectful. A girl she had trusted in her home. A girl who might be... No. Her mind refused to say it. That's not possible, Adana whispered, shaking her head. James would have told me. He would have said something. He couldn't have. No. Her voice cracked on the last word. Ella's eyes filled with silent tears. I didn't believe it at first too, Ma, she said gently. For many years, I told myself my mother only said it because she was sick. Maybe she imagined it. Maybe the pain made her confused. She took a deep breath. But after I came to your house, after I saw him, all the things she said started to make sense. Adana's voice trembled. What things? Ella wiped her cheeks and looked down at the floor. My mother said she once worked in a small office where James was doing an internship. Back then, he was young and quiet. He noticed her. They became friends. Close friends. Ella looked up again, eyes wet. She said he was kind. She said he used to buy her food when she had no money. He walked her home sometimes. They talked every day. And one day, they crossed a line. Adana's chest tightened. Crossed a line. A simple phrase, but one that carried the weight of a broken world. Ella, listen, Adana said, her voice shaking. James has never, ever told me anything like this. Not even once. My husband would not hide a child. Ella swallowed hard. I'm not saying he knew, Ma. My mother said she tried to tell him she was pregnant. She called him. She wrote letters. She waited outside the company for days. But he didn't show up. Maybe he traveled, Adana said quickly, clinging to the only hope her heart could find. Ella shook her head. My mother said she later heard he left the country that same week. He didn't tell her anything. He just disappeared. A slow chill slid down Adana's spine. She knew James had studied abroad for a while in his youth. He mentioned it many times, but he always made it sound simple. Like nothing important had happened before he traveled. Her voice grew tight. So your mother believed he abandoned her? Ella nodded. But Ma, my mother never hated him. She wasn't angry. She wasn't bitter. She said maybe he was young. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe he got scared. She never blamed him for leaving. Ella paused. It was only after the watch incident, after he made her lose her job, that her heartbreak turned into pain she could not forgive. Adana closed her eyes, rubbing her forehead. Her whole world felt like it was cracking open. Ella, you are saying things that don't make sense, she said weakly. James would never treat a woman like that. He respects people, he's gentle. Ella nodded slowly. He is gentle now. But Ma, do you know who someone was 20 years ago? The question landed hard. Because the truth was simple. People change. People hide their past. People bury things so deep they start believing the lie. Still, Adana shook her head. I can't believe this until I hear it from him. Until he tells me himself. Ella's voice softened. That is why I never said anything, Ma. Because I wanted him to speak first. I hoped one day he would look at me and remember. But he didn't. She touched the frame of the picture on the wall. That is why I kept this picture. My mother gave it to me. She said it would help me find the truth one day. Adana felt something inside her collapse. Not because of anger, not because of jealousy or betrayal, but because she did not know what to believe anymore. James, her husband, the man who held her when she cried, the man who supported her through every business challenge, the man who told her she was his whole world. Had he built their marriage on a secret so big that it could destroy everything? She felt dizzy. I need air, she whispered. She stood up quickly and moved toward the door, but her legs wobbled. Ella rushed forward to help her, but Adana pulled away gently. I'm fine, she said, though she wasn't. She stepped outside into the sun. The heat hit her skin, but she barely felt it. Children ran past her, laughing. A woman washed clothes in a plastic bowl. Life was normal here, messy, loud, real, unlike the polished mansion where she lived. Ella stood behind her, scared. Ma, please don't hate me, she whispered. I swear I didn't come to destroy your home. I didn't plan to ever say any of this. I only wanted to survive. Adana turned slowly, her eyes soft but hurt. I don't hate you, Ella, she said honestly. But I am confused, and I am afraid of what this means. Ella nodded, wiping her cheeks. Ma, there is more. Adana's stomach twisted. More? Ella hesitated, then stepped back inside her house. When she returned, she was holding a small old envelope. Brown, faded, a little torn at the edges. She handed it to Adana with trembling fingers. This was the letter my mother wrote to James the week she found out she was pregnant. She tried to give it to him, but never got the chance. Adana stared at the envelope like it was a bomb. Slowly, she opened it. Inside was a neatly folded piece of paper with shaky handwriting. She unfolded it. The first line made her knees almost give out. James, I am carrying your child. Her breath hitched. She kept reading. Her eyes widened. Her heart pounded. Her fingers tightened around the paper so hard it almost ripped. Because near the end, buried in the middle of the letter, was a name she had never heard before. If anything happens to me, please remember our daughter, Eliana. Eliana. Adana looked up slowly. Eliana, she whispered. Is that your full name? Ella nodded. My mother named me after him, because she loved him, even when he never came back. Adana took one step back. Everything felt wrong. Everything felt unreal. And then, before she could speak, her phone rang loudly in her bag. She jumped. She pulled it out. Her heart froze when she saw the name on the screen. James, calling her, at the worst possible moment. Adana stared at the screen, breathing hard. Ella's eyes widened too. It's him, Adana whispered. The phone rang again. She swallowed hard and pressed answer. Hello, she said, trying to steady her voice. James sounded calm. Too calm. Adana? Where did you go? I came home early and they said you left without telling anyone. Is everything okay? Adana's lips parted, but no words came out. James continued. I need to talk to you. There's something important I've been hiding from you. Adana felt her blood run cold. What do you mean? She whispered. James hesitated, and then he said it. Adana, we need to talk about my past, about a woman I once knew. There are things you don't know. Adana's eyes filled with shock. Ella clasped her hands over her mouth. James breathed deeply through the phone. Adana, are you alone? He asked. She looked at Ella. She looked at the picture on the wall. Adana's hand trembled so hard she nearly dropped the phone. James's voice on the other end was steady, too steady for a man about to break open their entire marriage. Adana, he repeated softly. Are you alone right now? Alone? She looked around the small compound in Surulere. Children ran past with plastic toy cars. A woman fried puff-puff by the gate. Ella stood at the doorway of the house, hugging herself tightly, eyes shining with fear. No, she was not alone. But emotionally, spiritually, in her heart, she had never felt more alone in her life. Adana swallowed painfully. Her voice was barely a whisper. I can hear you, James. Go on. Ella stepped back inside the house, giving Adana space but never moving too far. James breathed deeply, like a man carrying a secret he had held too long. Adana, before I traveled abroad years ago, something happened. Something I never told anyone, not even you. Adanna's heart hammered in her chest. He continued, there was a young girl who worked in the office where I interned. Her name was Amara. Ella gasped softly from inside the doorway. Her mother. James was saying her mother's name. Adanna closed her eyes. James, what happened between you and Amara? She forced herself to ask. Silence. Then his voice softened with guilt. We were close. Too close. I was young, foolish, and careless. I liked her. A lot. And she liked me too. Adanna's fingers curled into a fist. So you had a relationship with her? She asked calmly, though her voice trembled. Yes, he whispered. But it wasn't serious. At least, I didn't think it was. I had already gotten my visa to leave Nigeria. Everything was moving fast. I didn't know she loved me that much. Adanna's throat tightened. Did you get her pregnant? I don't know, he said quietly. She told me she needed to talk to me urgently before I left, but I was scared. I avoided her. I left without hearing her out. Avoided her. Left her. Ran away from consequences. Adanna felt like her chest was being crushed. And the wristwatch incident? She asked sharply. James inhaled sharply. That was a misunderstanding, he said. I dropped my watch somewhere and assumed someone took it. I didn't know her name was even brought into it until later. I didn't know she lost her job. I swear I didn't know. Tears stung Adanna's eyes, not because of anger this time, but because she could hear the regret in his voice. James continued, voice shaking. For years. Adanna, I wondered if I had a child somewhere, but I was too afraid to face the truth, too afraid to ruin our marriage, so I buried it. I buried everything. Adanna pressed the phone closer to her ear, because somewhere inside her, a truth was rising. James might not be a monster. He might just be human. A human who made a terrible mistake. She swallowed hard. And why are you telling me this today? She asked quietly. He hesitated. Because yesterday, someone from my past contacted me. Adanna's eyes snapped open. Who? A woman, he said. She said she knew Amara. She said she has something I need to see. Something important. She wants to meet me. Adanna's blood ran cold. A woman? Someone who knew Ella's mother. Ella stepped closer slowly, listening from a distance. What did she say she has? Adanna asked. The truth, he whispered. She said the truth is finally ready to come out. Adanna felt a chill run through her body. What truth, James? She whispered. James's voice broke. Adanna, I think Amara might have given birth before she died. Her stomach flipped. And you think the child is yours? She asked quietly. James's voice cracked. I don't know, but it's possible, and if it is true, then that child would be 24 years old today. 24. Adanna slowly turned her head toward Ella. 24. Ella stared back at her, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. James continued speaking, unaware of the storm unfolding on the other end of the call. Adanna, I am sorry. I should have told you long ago. I should have told the truth before we even married, but I didn't know how. I'm not proud of who I was, but I'm ready to face the truth now. Adanna's hand tightened around the phone. James, she whispered, I need to ask you something. Anything, he said. If that child existed, she said slowly, would you want to know them? James hesitated. Then he said something that shook her to the core. If that child is alive, I would want to make things right. I would want to be in their life. I would want to apologize. To be a father. Ella covered her mouth as a sob escaped her. Adanna closed her eyes. Her voice came out soft and shaky. James, what time is this meeting with the woman? Evening, he said. Around 6. I want you to come with me. I cannot do this alone. Adanna nodded slowly, even though he couldn't see her. I'll come, she whispered. Good, James said, relieved. I love you, Adanna, and I'm sorry. She ended the call without replying. Silence filled the compound. Ella stepped forward, her whole body trembling. Ma, what did he say? She whispered. Adanna looked at her, really looked at her. The gentle eyes, the soft voice, the pain in her heart, and the possibility that she might be James's daughter. Adanna felt her chest tighten in a new way, a painful, confusing mix of anger, sadness, fear, and something she didn't expect, something like empathy. She stepped closer to Ella, but before she could speak, A loud knock hit the door of Ella's house violently. Bam, bam, bam. Both women jumped. Ella! A deep male voice shouted from outside. Open this door now, we need to talk. Ella froze. Her eyes filled with fear. Who is that? Adana whispered. Ella's lips shook as she replied, That is my uncle, and Ma, if he finds you here, everything will get worse. The violent pounding on the door grew louder. Bam, bam, bam. Ella shook from head to toe. Sweat gathered on her forehead. Her fingers twisted into the hem of her gown. Ma, she whispered, voice breaking. Please, you need to hide. Adana blinked. Hide? Why? Ella rushed toward her, panic tightening her voice. My uncle is not like other people, she whispered quickly. He is angry, unpredictable, and he hates rich people. If he sees you here, he will think I brought you to expose him. Please, Ma, please go inside. Another hard knock rattled the door. Ella, I said, open this door. The deep voice boomed. Adana stood frozen for a second, but something inside her shifted. She was a billionaire, yes, but right now, she was a woman who had stepped into a story she never asked for. She gently placed her hand on Ella's shoulder. I'm not leaving, Adana said firmly. You don't hide from fear, you face it. Ella's eyes widened. Ma, he is dangerous. Adana shook her head. No, he is just loud. I have handled louder people. Ella swallowed hard, terrified. But she unlocked the door. It swung open. A tall, wide-shouldered man with angry eyes and a rough beard stormed in. His shirt was half-buttoned, and he smelled of alcohol. His gaze locked onto the stranger in his sister's daughter's sitting room. Onto Adana. He froze, not because he recognized her, but because her presence screamed power. Who be this? He demanded, pointing at her. Ella, you now bring big women to this house? You want trouble? You want to disgrace me? Ella stepped in front of Adana quickly. Uncle, please, she pleaded. Don't shout, she came to check on me. Check on you, he barked, his eyes burning with anger. Since when do billionaires check on poor maids in Surulere? He moved closer, raising his voice. You think I don't know what you're doing? You want to expose me? You want to talk about what happened years ago? Ella flinched. Adana stepped forward, eyes firm. What exactly happened years ago? She asked. The man turned slowly, stunned that she dared to speak. You listen to me, he growled, stepping closer. Whatever you think this girl told you, she is lying. We don't need your rich woman pity. Leave this place, now. Ella grabbed his arm, pleading. Uncle, please, she knows everything. About Mama, about James, about the letter. She found the picture. That was the wrong thing to say. Her uncle spun around, eyes wide with fury. You showed her the picture. I didn't, Ella cried. She saw it on the wall. Please stop. He cut her off with a roar. Ella, that picture was never meant to be seen. You want to destroy your life. You want to destroy his life. Adana stepped between them immediately. That is enough, she said calmly. Do not raise your voice at her. The man glared at her. And who are you to tell me anything? Adana Anderson, she replied simply. His eyes twitched. He recognized the surname. Everyone did. You're James's wife? He whispered. Yes. He took a step back. Then another. Then he sank into the nearest chair, like a man whose secrets had finally been dragged into the light. You shouldn't have come here, he muttered. You shouldn't have found that picture. Why? Adana asked quietly. Why hide Ella from the truth? He rubbed his face with both hands, shaking. Because, he said slowly, voice cracking, telling her the truth would destroy everything. Ella stepped closer. What truth, uncle? She asked. Tell me now. Please. The man lifted his head, eyes red. I was the one who stopped your mother from telling James the truth, he whispered. I told her it was useless. I told her he would reject her. I was the one who told her not to go to him again. Ella's breath caught. You stopped her? He nodded weakly. I told her she should raise you alone. I told her rich people don't care about poor girls like us. I told her she was better off without him. Ella's voice broke. But she died, uncle. She died because she lost everything. I didn't know she would die, he yelled back, his voice cracking. I thought she would get another job. I thought she would be strong. I didn't know she was sick. He buried his face in his hands again. I thought I was protecting her. And instead I destroyed her. Ella collapsed onto a chair, sobbing. Adana felt her chest twist painfully. This wasn't just about James. This wasn't just about Amara. This was a whole web of fear, pride, and mistakes stretching across decades. She walked slowly toward Ella and placed a gentle hand on her back. "It's okay. Let it out," Adana whispered. Ella cried harder. Her uncle looked away, ashamed. After a long moment, he spoke again. "Ella," he whispered, "I hid the truth because I didn't want you going after James. I didn't want you hoping for a life that wasn't yours. I thought it would break you." Ella looked up, tears streaming. "I didn't want his money," she whispered. "I just wanted to know the truth. I just wanted to know who I am." Her uncle lowered his head, and then he reached into his pocket. With trembling hands, he pulled out a small, folded document. "I kept this for years," he said quietly. "Your mother left it with me. Told me to give it to you when you were old enough." Ella stared at the paper. What is it?" she whispered. He handed it to her slowly. Ella opened it with shaking hands. Adana stepped closer. Her eyes widened the moment she saw it. It wasn't a letter. It wasn't a picture. It was a birth certificate. Ella's birth certificate. And under father's name, a single name was written in faded ink. James A. Anderson. Adana gasped. Ella's mouth fell open. Her uncle dropped his face in his palms. "I didn't want you to see it," he whispered brokenly. "I didn't want your heart to break the way your mother's did." Ella burst into sobs, so heavy her entire body shook. Adana knelt beside her, holding her as tightly as she could. But the chapter didn't end with tears. It ended with the sound of a car approaching the building. A sleek black SUV. Quiet engine. Tinted windows. It stopped right outside. A familiar voice called out, "Adana? Are you here?" Ella froze. Adana inhaled sharply. Her uncle's head snapped up. James stepped into the compound. He looked from Adana to Ella, to the birth certificate in her hands. His face drained of color. "Adana," he whispered, his voice shaking. What is that?" Adana stood slowly, her eyes locked on him, and she held up the paper. "James," she said in a trembling voice, "you need to see this." James stepped forward. He reached for the certificate with shaking fingers. He read the name, and the man who always appeared calm, strong, in control, fell to his knees. If you like this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.